Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today I finally get to share with you a little bit of our recent journey to Ireland. You may recall a little while ago now, a couple of months ago, we got hold of a camper van, and in the weeks and months since then we've been tentatively stretching its legs. You know, the occasional weekend away, this kind of thing, getting to know the vehicle and what it can and can't do. But this was our first real road trip in the camper van, and it was wonderful. It was a really, really wonderful journey, and also a family gathering in the south of Ireland. But it started quite stressful. It started from a quite a stressful moment in time, because we were setting out on the morning of the European elections. And these were elections that some people were complaining shouldn't be happening because Britain is leaving the EU, but that's beside the point. We wanted to do our civic duty and to vote, and so we figured, well, we'll get up early. We'll go to the polling station as soon as they open. We'll get diesel for the van, and then we'll be away for the ferry. It'll be fine. So the polling station opened at 7, and we were numbers 3 and 4 through the door. So that's great. We got to the supermarket, got our diesel, and around about 20 past 7 we're putting the postcode in the sat nav. And at this point things started to get stressful, because we were told that we would be arriving at about 11 o'clock in the morning. Now the ferry leaves at about 11:30, and you're advised to arrive about 10:02, just to be safe. It's a bit like an airport in that sense. You need to be there on time or ahead of time, so that they can check your documents and make sure everything's in order and this kind of thing. So we put the postcode in, and my poor wife starts off her holiday sort of, it'll be fine kind of thing, because we don't want to have to book another ferry. So I decide to cross the country with ambition, shall we say. As we crossed northern England into Scotland, I was driving at or maybe slightly above the speed limit here or there, in order to try and gain back a few precious minutes. But the thing is, as soon as you leave the motorway in Scotland and you head onto the A road that heads out to the ferry terminal, and this is a good portion of the journey, it just slows down. The road, even though it's a main road between these two islands in the British Isles, a little bit like the M1A1 going from London to Edinburgh, the north of England, and in this instance the west of Scotland, aren't terribly well catered for, despite the traffic that has to use the road. So we had farming traffic, we had holiday traffic, of course. We also had commercial traffic, trucks, articulated lorries doing the best that they could on this road. And well, we started to lose time. I would be like, so how are we doing for time? And my wife would be like, yeah, we're okay. And then eventually it got to, you just don't want to know. You don't want to know. Which of course made me drive with even more ambition, shall we say. And thankfully I did. I'm glad I did, because initially I was thinking, am I doing all this? Am I getting this stressed just to miss the ferry? But actually we arrived, and this is no word of an exaggeration, we arrived quite literally as they were closing the queue. So we saw a truck in front of us just as we were pulling away, and this woman comes around the back of the truck with a chain in her hand, ready to chain off the queue. And she's like whistling to herself, looking at the ground, looks up and literally rolls her head back and rolls her eyes and goes, okay, come through. And we it was very quick actually. We just, yes, that's our name, we've got a dog with us, off we go. It was fast, but had we been 10 seconds later, we would have been waiting behind that chain. We wouldn't have got through. And it wouldn't have been the end of the world. We were Googling on the way over, how much is it to change your ticket to another. It would have been about £100, and given that we'd spent about 200-ish on the ticket, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, but it would have been, you don't want to have to just waste money if you don't have to. I hate wasting money, and so does my wife. So we were relieved, shall we say. So we managed to vote, and we got on the ferry. win. And the thing is, the ferry was this is the fullest ferry I've ever been on to Northern Ireland. It was just packed with tourist buses. So there were a couple of buses, certainly from China, I think, maybe one from America. So it was a very noisy, very cramped ferry compared to our normal crossing. Normally we'd cross late at night or early in the morning because because it's easier, but also as well because we're just going from Antrim to Newcastle, or from Newcastle to Antrim, where my wife is from, and also where her parents still live. But on this particular instance, we've learned lessons, shall we say? We've learned lessons, and next time we won't try and vote before we go to the ferry, if it is a voting day. But anyway, the crossing was quite good fun. There was in the arcade, as ever. I inspected the arcade on board. There was a Batmobile arcade game, which was fun. I quite liked it. And there was a sniper rifle game, which I don't normally play these things because in this instance it was a game where you could play with and also win real world money. And normally I'm a bit sort of, having grown up in North Wales amongst big arcade, streets, beach fronts, this kind of thing, you learn to be skeptical of these sorts of machines. You learn not to waste your money on them, basically. And in this instance I was like, because I went in with £1. I forgot to bring change up from the van into the arcade, or for the arcade. I had £1 coin and everything was £1 to play. So I figured, okay, well, I'll try and win some money on the sniper rifle. So put £1 in, and it was a game where you have the screen set up, but also you have the gun has a little screen in the scope. So it's not like you're zooming in on the screen. You have a screen in the gun that is a zoomed in version of what you're pointing at. It's quite clever in that sense. And I did quite well. Turns out I'm a crack shot. I actually came away from that having won £5. So I came away with £6, and I proceeded to spend those £5 on the Batmobile game, on an Aliens shooter, which I've talked about in a previous video, and then came away from the arcade with the pound coin that I went in with. So so it was a net zero sum game, as it were. I had managed to not spend any money, oddly enough, even though I had a lot of fun. And really that was the beginning of my holiday, and from that point onwards, the drive into Antrim was very pleasant. And that evening, actually, it was really nice to it's always lovely seeing the in-laws, but it was really nice to spend the evening with my father-in-law, just going through the van. He was really curious about it. He wanted to see how it worked, but also we had some questions because he's a physics teacher, but also he's a very practical sort of electrical engineer and this kind of thing. And that's one area that I'm not confident in. I'm okay with most tools and most scenarios, and mixing cement and all this sort of stuff. But electrics, I'm just aware that if you get it wrong, it's it could go very wrong. It could be lethal. So he actually walked me through different bits of the van, and I felt much more confident and comfortable with the vehicle, having learned a bit about what particular bits were in terms of the wiring, for the living quarters, this kind of thing. But also as well, he did this thing where he noticed that the physical locks on the van, so the central locking worked, but the physical locks weren't quite aligning with the holes in the pillars. And this is because seemingly someone's tried to break into the vehicle at some point in its life. It's quite an old van. It looks like you can see some dents on the side. And he insisted on filing the holes out to be larger so the locks would actually work. He's a wonderful guy, and as my wife puts it, he likes to show his love for people by helping them, and by being there for them in that way. And so it was a wonderful evening, almost a bonding evening, you could say. But also, actually, I got an opportunity to send up my drone for the first time in the trip. So I sent up the drone to film the field opposite the house and go around the property a little bit. And it was just a wonderful evening. It was a really nice evening, and it marked it marked a new beginning, as it were, for the journey, following on from that stressful start in the morning. The next day we set out for Sligo, for County Sligo, and we were going to be crossing the border sort of mid-afternoon, and we decided to stop just short of the border for a cup of tea. And again, I sent my drone up because again, it was, you know, I figured I want to have fun with this. So it was one of my holiday activities was filming things with the drone, and as we crossed the border, it immediately became obvious that we were in a different jurisdiction, as it were, a different country, because the road markings all changed. The specifics of what you're seeing on the road is completely different. The signs change, but also crucially the speeds change. So it's kilometers per hour, not miles per hour in the Republic. And so we had to make a little note on the sun visor just to make sure that we were getting the speeds right, because on our speedo the kilometers are there, but they're tiny little red numbers. You can't really see them compared to the white miles per hour. It's kind of easier to see the miles per hour as we were driving. So we were constantly having to sort of check the notes and go back and forth. Whoever was the passenger was having to tell the driver, okay, this means 31 miles an hour or whatever, so on and so forth. But it was nice, and it was really nice to be going along through a part of the world that feels very familiar to me, and also actually to my wife, obviously, but also to me in terms of it's not dissimilar to Wales and to North Wales, where I'm from, but also felt distinctly different as well. It was nice to compare and contrast, and for her it was nice to compare it with Northern Ireland, even though she has been through there, but it's been a while, you know, since she's been there. And also we both compared it to Scotland and also to Northern England, where we live. So that was quite pleasant. And we stopped that night next to a place called Loch Arrow, which was again, it was a nice breather, just a stop at the end of what had been a fairly busy couple of days. And my favourite thing about this leg of the journey was the fact that we bumped into a wonderful Irish couple the next morning at breakfast at the camper van site, who just kept on quizzing us about Brexit. They were like, "What's going on over there? You know, they're like, wait, how have things got to be the way that they are?" And you know, we have little sympathy, if I'm honest, for people who voted to leave the EU on the grounds that, for example, you know, migration is a terrible thing, or that foreigners are wrong and whatever. So we couldn't really give them many answers. We were sort of like, well, we don't really know, to be honest. And in the case of this couple, they were like, so what's wrong with us? Why don't you want to be our friends, as it were, you know, the UK and Ireland? And we're like, I don't know, we don't know. But it was a funny conversation. We had it in a funny way, and it reminded me that actually, even when the UK is no longer part of Europe, we'll still be able to have funny conversations and enjoy each other's company when we go abroad. But I'll come back to that a bit later. I had one more thought at the end of the journey about that. But then we moved on to a place called Carrowkeel. I wanted to go and see a Neolithic burial cemetery, like a burial site. And unfortunately, the tombs were on private land, so we couldn't take the dog. But that just meant I again sent my drone up to take a look at the tomb. And we didn't see a lot of it, but next time, you know, when we do go back, we'll know better. So we'll be able to leave the dog with someone and then go for a walk ourselves. And then we continued our journey down the west coast, eventually into County Clare. And we stopped that night at a place called Doonbeg, having unfortunately also failed to see the was it the cliffs of Moher? The cliffs of Moher, which my wife was really excited about. She really wanted to show me these. She remembered them from when she was a kid. But the fog, man, the fog was thick that day. So we pulled up at the car park and you couldn't see. Apparently somewhere in the photo that I took in the background there is cliffs, and there's and there's a dramatic vista. But we weren't going to pay €8 to go in and park in a foggy car park and not see anything. So we moved on. We ended up in Doonbeg, and that was again a lovely place to stop. And also, fun fact, it's also a place where one of Trump's golfing resorts is located. So we got to see the Trump International Golfing Links Resort or something like that as we drove to our campsite. The next morning we set off again, and as we continued down the west coast, we were heading to basically the goal was to get to Kenmare in County Kerry, and the way to do that was to go from Clare to Kerry via a ferry. And I love saying that, going to County Kerry in the ferry. And at this point on that day, the in-laws, my wife's parents, and also my brother-in-law were setting off from Antrim and coming diagonally across to meet us down in County Kerry, in Kenmare. So we knew that we'd be seeing them that night, and that was quite pleasant, actually, knowing that we were going to be meeting up. This journey was coming to its last stage, and at some point during this journey, we had also stopped at a place called. I think it was after the ferry, or was it before? No, it must have been before the ferry. Some point around here, I know, we saw the Ratu Tower, which was, again, it was a little sort of archaeological thing to look at, but also it was something that again, my wife just remembered as a kid and wanted to show me. And so it was nice, actually, in the same way that I've shown her things from my childhood in North Wales, little sites and spots and forests and things. It was nice just to see some of this stuff and have her so happy to be there, with me, kind of thing. So again, I sent my drone up, and then we got some footage there. But then when we got into Kerry, it was a fairly straight shot, really, to Kenmare, where we were staying in a cottage with the rest of the family. And when we were there, we did various bits of exploring. So well, obviously we weren't staying in the camper van at that point, so we parked the camper van outside the cottage. But we did lots of walking around Kenmare itself. There's a little stone circle actually in the town that was fun to visit. I got my hands on a real Donegal flat cap, although ironically I had to travel to the south of Ireland to get my hands on something that comes from the very top of the island, as it were. But also my wife likes that it's a green flat cap with little flecks of colour in it. It's got some character to it, which well, for me it's important because actually I've got another flat cap. Hang on just a second. So I've got this flat cap. It's sort of a pinstripe grey flat cap, and the thing is, my wife reckons that this flat cap is trying to be sort of hip and cool, and I never bought it for that reason. I never bought it because I thought it was hip and cool. I just thought it was a flat cap that I liked the look of, and I enjoyed, and I still do quite enjoy it. But whenever I wear it with her around, she sort of teases me that it's my my Backstreet Boys cap or something stupid like that. So this cap is a proper farmer's flat cap. You can't complain about it, and also, as I say, she likes it, and it's green. So it's got a good connection as being my Irish cap. So got this flat cap. We got a jigsaw of the whole of Ireland, all the counties in the Republic and also Northern Ireland, and I converted that to stick to a steel plate. And when we got back, we got some magnets and a very carefully sized drill bit. Put the magnets in the back of the jigsaw pieces. Got a steel. Well, initially, actually, it was magnetic paint that we were trying to do inside a picture frame, but the magnetic paint just wasn't strong enough. So I ended up getting a steel plate to go in the picture frame, and now that hangs up in our landing next to our bedroom near the bathroom. So we got that in Kenmare. We also went on a couple of other journeys. There was the is it Banone or Bonane? I always get the name wrong. The Bonane Heritage Park. We went there because so this is worth saying, actually, because so we're the people of our generation, me, my wife, her cousins who were actually staying with her father's sister as a family. They'd also got a cottage up the road, so it was a big family gathering. But her cousins, my brother-in-law, we all saw this as an opportunity to relax, work hard up until the holiday and then come down from that with a so we took books, we banked on having afternoons just chilling by the fire or something like that, or out in the garden. But no, because for the parental generation, for my wife's parents, for her aunt and uncle, this is a time to do things. They're retired, so they spend all their time doing what we were hoping to do. So of course they're like, off we go to the heritage park. Come on Mark, you're an archaeologist, off we go, let's go and have a look. And it was fun. I'm not complaining, it was lovely, but it did mean that we basically needed a week after we got back to try and get some relaxation in, because I worked like a demon right up until leaving, because I figured I'd be having some time off. But driving the length of a large island, and then having things to do every day. It was a vacation, in the sense of it being a touring holiday, that kind of thing. So the Bonane Heritage Park was gorgeous. There's one shot in particular that I really liked of there was a ring fort, I think, and it's worth just giving it a bit of time to unfold, because you also get to see the landscape as well that the ring fort was set in. It was a gorgeous part of the world. And also, again, it just underlines similarities but also differences. So Ireland, the west coast and the southwest of Ireland, has a similar geological and topographical character to parts of Wales that I'm very familiar with. But it's also much less densely occupied, I think. It's not as though parts of Wales aren't sparsely populated, but there's just something about the roads and the and where people have chosen to live. It just feels different, and of course it feels different. It's a different place, so it was really nice just to see that and to be able to, again, just to play with my drone in that landscape. But the Ring of Kerry, the sort of the road that kind of brings you around Kerry, was a wonderful place to drive. And actually, most of the driving was being done by my father-in-law at this point. So I was often a passenger in the car, so I got to enjoy the view and again do bits of filming and take photos here and there. It was just glorious. It was so again, we were doing things, but they were they were sort of they were stimulating in that way that helps to recharge you a little bit, just in that sense. So again, it was a touring holiday, which was good. And towards the end of our week away, we went to a place called Garinish Island, setting off from a place called Glengarriff on the coast, which again I took some drone footage there, starting in the blue pool or blue lagoon or something like that, blue pool I think, and then rising up to show the coastline. And actually, if you look very closely, you can see the ferry that we're about to get on, just coming round the headland there. And the island was really interesting because it reminded me that part of the world, even though it's in Ireland, a place that's famously wet and has very changeable weather, even more so than certainly parts of England. Again, Wales is similar in that respect. The southwest of Ireland is very mild. It gets air and water directly from the Gulf Stream coming across the Atlantic from tropical parts of the world. So actually, Garinish Island is a place where plants grow from parts of the world where you wouldn't expect them to. So from New Zealand, from jungles, from sort of desert hinterland, you get all these plants that thrive on an island off the southwest coast of Ireland. And that was really interesting to see this collection of stuff. So it was an island that was sold to into private ownership, a businessman from Belfast in 1910, I think, but had been actually a fort. It had been a place where there's a tower on the island, which had belonged to the Ministry of Defence, or the War Office, back when Ireland was part of the UK. So this guy bought it in 1910, and then bequeathed it. The family bequeathed it to the people of Ireland in 1954, 53, 54, I think. So it was interesting to see and to imagine that someone had bought this and then set it up as this tropical wonderland, so close to these epic mountains and hills and the seascape of Ireland. It was interesting to go and visit that place, definitely. And then the next day we were heading home. It had been a chock-a-block week, and we came home this time in one shot, a straight shot. Not all the way home, back to County Antrim, back to the to my wife's home, childhood home, in one shot. And that was basically driving diagonally across from the southwest to Dublin, more or less, and then north from there. And that was an experience, I have to say. The road network in parts of Ireland, and again, coming from rural Wales, I'm not just complaining in order to go, oh, country bumpkins, all these silly people don't know what a real road is. It's all about investment, basically. And the road network in parts of Ireland is as bad as some of the worst parts of Wales. It was an experience driving a big ass van across that part of the country. And I'll leave it there. Let's be polite. I'll leave it there. But there were times when I was convinced that I'd ruined, the suspension or something. There was a few roads that need some work. But just coming back to, as I said earlier, this little reflection on the relationship with the European Union, and actually, frankly, between Northern Ireland and Ireland, or indeed, the rest of the UK and our Irish cousins, as it were. And I say that in all seriousness. I mean, my family not that long back has Irish connection. We were driving up the M1 to come back home to the UK, and we crossed the border at 70 miles an hour. You wouldn't have known there was a border if the road signs hadn't suddenly changed, or if the road markings hadn't changed. And the thought of there having to be a hard border again between the two is difficult to reflect upon. It's a genuine shame in terms of this whole Brexit thing, because. So on the way back, personally, I would have loved to have stopped at the Boyne Valley. We drove up the Boyne Valley, in fact, and they have some tombs there which are just internationally famous. And I've studied these, I've written essays about them, and we didn't quite have time to stop. In fact, we were going by them on a Sunday at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, so they were closed, to the public. But we were reflecting on how, I was reflecting on how, and my wife agreed that hopefully, next time we want to visit them, maybe next year, we don't have to get a visa, or we don't have to have a passport, or we don't have to, it's going to be so much more difficult to do this sort of journey in a year's time if things don't go better than they're currently looking, shall we say. So it was a sobering thought at the end of this journey that we had done something that our if we have kids, that our children may not be able to do, and that's a shame. We may not be able to do as easily as we have anyway. We literally, there was nothing. We just drove into Ireland and we drove out of Ireland, and it was a wonderful time. But I'll leave it there anyway. It was a wonderful time, and in that sense, thank you, Ireland, for having us, and also hopefully this has satisfied some of your requests. I've had a couple of requests since we got the camper van to talk a little bit about a journey that we take in the van, and so I figured I would give you a flavour of our trip to Ireland. It was great, and crucially as well, I forgot to say, the night before we left, we went into Kenmare and just had a wonderful time in the pubs. Live music was excellent. Every single pub I think it was called Henry Street, but on the high street, more or less, was rocking with pretty good live music. Fiddles, singing, dancing. In that sense, it was similar to some of the best Welsh pubs that you can get. Certainly a world away from most English pubs. You don't really get that in English pubs. English pubs tend to be quiet and sort of darts and it used to be smoking, I guess, back in the day. But that sort of hunkered down around your table talking to each other kind of situation. Pleasant, quiet conversation, but not the fun that we had in Kenmare. So it was great. Anyway, I'm rambling now, and I wasn't quite sure really how to tell this story, so I figured I'd just start at the beginning and end at the end, and so hopefully this has been vaguely fun to watch. Next time, I want to take a little look at Bloodstained on the Switch. My copy is arriving today in the post, and I'm hoping that it's not as bad as people are saying it is. In terms of the port, the game's meant to be amazing, but the port for the Switch is meant to be a bit ropey. Hopefully they update the game for next week. And then also I have a story to tell you about my nose. I might have hinted at my nose in previous episodes, but yeah, I last week was reminded that there's a story that I've always wanted to tell you, and I'll tell you that in that episode. Anyway, guys, as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.